It was a very short run, but it still led me to rethink my life and shift. Hello, I'm Dana. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I am back for another reading of my book, 7 Years to Surrender, My Journey to Faith. I am on chapter 11, Mr. Match Guy. I know it's taking me forever to read through the book, but it is what it is. When I put my book out and I knew it was me exposing myself. A lot of my stories, my book is so layered. It's a story of surrender. It's a lot of just my life stories. It's about setting boundaries. It's about healing in this whole process. It's about exposing secrets. My relationship with God, my growth in ministry, my journey as a stepmother. It is just so many layers to this book. When I exposed my stories, my secrets in putting my book out, I really thought that that was like the biggest step. But when I was led to then come on and read the book, I didn't know that reading the book would be another level of vulnerability. I didn't realize that, but I'm seeing, I continue to see the setup and how things are connected, and I continue to surrender and just not resist. That's really what surrender is. It's just allowing life to unfold naturally. I think another reason to read the book is to those that are non readers, and just to continue to see the evolution of life and see this thing in real time and how life just unfolds. You don't always know the reasons why you're led to do certain things, but more and more, the surrender is just letting go of the control that we don't have in the first place. As the Bible says, our lives are not our own. I still want to get my story out, and this is just another form of me getting my story out. So let's just read chapter 11, Mr. Match Guy. By 2014, I had been trying and failing to cut ties with the long due situationship that started back in 2002. Let's call him Redbone. That door should have been shut over a decade ago, but it kept creaking open. We lived in different states, so the situationship had turned into a long distance. Why are we still doing this arrangement? I'd moved to Cincinnati in 2008 and hadn't dated anyone seriously in all that time. It was past time for something new. So I did the thing. I joined a dating site. At first, it was forgettable. Literally, I can't even remember the first few guys. A couple of them seemed interesting, but it never got past texting. A few dates fizzled out, but then toward the end of the year, Mr. Match Guy popped up on my screen. Let's call him Goshen. He was fine, like too fine. Honestly, I didn't think I could pull him, but he started chatting with me over the app. I was still cautiously watching for signs of game playing. We messaged back and forth for a while and eventually agreed that we liked each other and wanted to meet. With the holidays approaching, we decided to wait until after Christmas to have our first date. In the meantime, we kept up a steady stream of texting and phone calls, light, flirty, and full of potential. At the time, Redbone must have sensed something was shifting because he started fighting hard to stay relevant. And yes, there was another match guy still texting me too, but he was just comic relief. My heart and attention were now with Goshen. After Christmas, I drove back to Cincy, and Goshen and I planned to meet up that very night. We chose a restaurant just down the street from my apartment. I arrived a little late, and the hostess walked me to his table. I was nervous, shaking, but I felt cute. And when I saw him in person, oof, he was even more beautiful than his pictures. He stood up, smiled, and came to sit beside me instead of across from me. That was already a green flag. We started chatting, and he complimented me right away. "You look gorgeous." We had the usual first date conversation, laughing and vibing like we already knew each other. Time flew by, so much so that the restaurant had to ask us to leave when they closed. We didn't want to say goodbye, but I headed home. When I got home, I called him to say goodnight, and somehow I ended up giving him my address. And before I could overthink it, he was on his way over. Hand over my face emoji. He came in. I gave him the grand tour, all 735 square feet of it, and we sat on the couch and kept talking. It felt easy and natural. He stayed for a couple of hours, PG rated, nothing more, and then said goodnight. The next few days were filled with more text, more calls, and a lunch date. We started talking about New Year's Eve and possibly hanging out. He already had plans to go to a party. I didn't. He invited me to join him, and I said yes. Just like that, I had New Year's Eve plans and butterflies. I started shopping for something to wear. This wasn't just a party, it felt like a new chapter. As 2014 came to a close, I had plans to ring in the new year at a party with Goshen. I had bought the cutest blush colored sweater mini dress, and it looked amazing. My hair was the longest it had ever been, and I was obsessed with it. I blow dried it and did a twist out, which was perfect. He lived about 45 minutes away in a rural area. This would be my first time driving to his house. It was super dark out, and once I got to his street, I lost GPS service. The houses were set back from the road, and I couldn't see any addresses. I started to panic a little. I eventually just guessed which house was his and pulled into the driveway. It was a risk, but I leaned into it. I called him to come outside before I got out of the car. He came out and turned on the light over the garage. Just as I started to relax and gather my things, I looked up and froze. A huge cat was sitting on the hood of my car, staring at me. Cats have always freaked me out. Goshen thought it was hilarious. He had told me about his cat, and I had mentally prepared to deal with it, but this cat wasn't even his, which I didn't know at the time. I sat there, about 25 feet from the door, waiting for it to leave. It didn't. It just sat there, controlling me. I was not about to let fear win. Heart pounding, I jumped out of the car and made a run for it. Goshen opened the door and pulled me into his arms. He complimented me on how I looked, and I tried to act like I wasn't still recovering from my near death encounter with a cat. He gave me a quick tour of his house. It was a modest ranch with 3 bedrooms, a den, and an ensuite off the main bedroom. It was clean, but definitely a bachelor pad. Thankfully, his cat was outside. After he got dressed, we headed to the party in his silver Jaguar. The cat was gone for now, but I remained on guard. The party was at a little strip mall about 25 minutes away. It was ice cold that night, and when we arrived, not many people were there yet. We checked our coats, and he introduced me to a few friends. We found a table, and he went to grab drinks. As the place started to fill up, I settled in. We danced, drank, and mingled. It wasn't my first New Year's Eve out, but something about being there with him made it feel different. I liked him a lot, but I wasn't sure where it was headed. He was so beautiful, and I felt a little insecure. What if he realized I wasn't in his league? When the party ended, we headed back to his house. I stayed the night since it was so late. Let's be real, even if it wasn't late, I was staying. After we showered, we crawled into bed. The bed was freezing. It had red satin sheets. Who knew satin sheets could feel like a glacier? We snuggled close, trying to warm up, and things quickly started heating up in another way. He slipped under the covers, moving with intention. I knew where this was going. Before he could make contact, I stopped him. He looked up, his face full of concern. What's wrong? I froze. My mind raced. I could lie and say I was on my period, but the truth was stuck in my throat. I didn't want to lose him, yet I couldn't start something real based on a lie. So I took a breath and with my heart pounding, I pushed the words out. I told him my secret, letting the shame wash over me. Okay. So, where to begin? I actually was going to talk about this chapter in my last reading, but when I realized what it was about, it just didn't really go with that last chapter. So I decided to make it a separate video. I talked about my secret in several chapters back when I was with my ex, the dentist, and I revealed the STD. Of course, that was very uncomfortable to share. Like I said, even just putting my book out was very uncomfortable. But to then read it and to kind of give a recap and talk about it in detail in these videos, it was just, I wasn't quite prepared to do that. In that it's still shocking to talk about even now. Like when I talked about it before, it was strange to actually talk about and elaborate on. I kind of had put it behind me as I went on in the book, but I kind of forgot that this was another part of that secret. It's like you don't hear a lot of people, or at least I haven't come across a lot of videos or even books that reveal something this personal. The thing that strikes me is that, I mean, I don't literally know how many people deal with this because it's a secret. It's one of those things that are so personal and private and we just don't talk about it. And here I am talking about it. I've dealt with it for years, and the thing for me is that I wasn't when I did get it, when I did contract the STD, it wasn't like I had multiple partners. I had one partner, and using protection was never really talked about because as a church girl, it's just one of those things that you don't do. And because you're not supposed to do it, you don't feel comfortable talking to someone about it. And so, because I was still very naive, and like I said, he was my first partner, it was never discussed. And a lot of these encounters where you do have unprotected sex, you pay the consequences, whether it's an STD or you get pregnant. And thankfully, I didn't get pregnant. I still had to have this consequence that I would have to live with the rest of my life. And it would be an ongoing consequence that I would have to deal with in every relationship after. And that is a very long term consequence. And I still don't see a lot of people or hear about a lot of people actually discussing it. And it's like it's just it's just hidden under the surface. But my journey has brought me here to discuss it. And when I think about my journey, the step motherhood part of my journey, that was a big struggle for me, but it led me here. It was the biggest reason why now my journey has brought me here to talk about the struggles of being a stepmom. I was a very private person, and how my journey has evolved to me now sharing things that are so personal and private, and I'm so vulnerable and open. Just would have never thought that this would be my life and how these things connected and me sharing my story and now coming on here and being even more vulnerable and more transparent. But on the other side of it, it's still a freedom. And even though this experience happened and this pushed me to the limit. This in this chapter, when I started dating this guy that, like I said, was very attractive. Um, I didn't really feel like I was in his league, but that was just another part of my insecurity being revealed. I mean, I've always lived my life comfortable in my own skin. Even if I wasn't the most attractive person, I still felt good within my own skin and I was confident and I knew I wasn't for everyone and that was fine with me. And so when I got on this dating site, my main thing to get on the website was to get over the guy that I was dating, Redbone. I was still living my single life, very free and enjoying life. I would travel alone. I would go out to eat by myself. I would go to movies by myself. Like I lived in a city pretty much by myself. I mean, I had a few people that I knew at church and then at work, but for the most part, I lived my life alone and I loved it. I didn't allow being single to stop me from doing anything, but I still wanted the occasional companionship. And if it led to something more serious, I was open to that too. I didn't think a lot about it as far as like dating, it was just kind of something to do. And so when he did reach out to me, I was, like I said, hesitant, but I was willing to let it play out. And it was a quick. So I opened myself up to Goshen. Like I said, I just wanted to see it play out. And it started in December and it ended in January. It was a very short run, but it still led me to rethink my life and shift. The date was fun. It was all moving so quickly when we started talking and when I was traveling up to Michigan for Christmas, chat with him here and there. It was just really fun. I had all of the butterflies and then I got back to Cincinnati after Christmas and we went out. It felt like one of those experiences that you see in the movies, like all of the nervousness, the romantic part of it. It was all of that. And then when I went to his house to meet him for New Year's Eve, when I read about that part of sitting in the car and I'm like already nervous to go to this party and this cat is sitting there, it's like, what is this all about? It's just funny to look back and see all of the different pieces that played into this whole journey. And we went to the party and we danced, and even that was just very uncomfortable because I've never been someone that would go out to clubs and dance. I'm a skater and I've skated for years since I was a kid. So I mean, I'm used to moving my body. So in that vein, I'm kind of familiar with, dancing. So that was kind of new. I mean, I had done it with Redbone. We had been out dancing, but that's a whole nother book. It was just still this new person. And after the party, I didn't know how the night was going to end, of course. I was just going with the flow. And then it just escalated so quickly. It was just all of the things, like having a good time. I hadn't thought in advance like how everything was going to play out as far as the intimate interaction. I figured there would be some intimacy, but I just didn't know how far it would go. I had to decide right then and there, and I went with the truth. It was like almost in that moment, I didn't have a choice. Like I didn't feel like I had a choice. In that moment, it was just like I knew I had to tell the truth. It was just something in me. And I don't know what that was. I don't know if I was like thinking, I don't want to start off with the lie, or because like I could have just let it play out longer and then told him later. But in that moment, the truth was the only way. The truth was that I had to reveal it. So that's what happened. I told him, and we still were intimate the rest of the night. That was definitely something that shifted. in that moment. And I didn't really get any sleep that night. I'll go into what happened afterwards in the next chapter. But it was just one of those experiences that when I look back on, it still had to play out like it did. I'm still thankful that it happened this way. And I'll explain more in detail as the book goes on. But for those few weeks of talking to Goshen, it was definitely a shifting, and that's what the next chapter is about. The whole shifting of what this experience led to, and really shifting everything in my life. Looking back at it, it had to happen. And I'm thankful that that experience led me to see things in another way, to really have a deeper perspective of who I am. So, yeah, I think I'm going to have to leave it there. My battery is about to run out, but thanks for watching. Please share if this resonated with you and if you contracted an STD. I'm curious to know, like, if you have an STD, like, how do you live your life? Like, what changed from the moment that you contracted an STD? How did it impact your future relationships? So, let's talk about it. All right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. I was still I was still cautiously watching for I was still cautiously watching for okay.